Hello.
Hi.
Hello, and welcome everyone to the Engineer Your Success, Leadership, and Life Harmony Like a Mother show. And it's the special edition of the Kinia and Rachel Jam. So we are two working mamas. Rachel is the marketing manager at Kepler Academy, and I am the CEO and founder of Pros&Babes, where we want to help moms integrate family and career life.
That's right.
And welcome back, Rachel. And today's topic is we're touching upon a couple of key things: sanity-preserving strategies for working moms, and that touches upon the topic of emotional labor, mental load, and domestic labor, and dual career planning. These things come together, right? Because actually, before I dive into this, I'm going to read an excerpt from the book "Pay Off" by Reshma Shaujani. It's a Pay Up: The Future of Women in Work and Why It's Different Than You Think. And so when I read this paragraph, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay.
Perfect.
So, this is the excerpt of, I screwed up. And here we go. She says, "I was wrong because, as it turns out, gender equality in the workplace is a mighty and worthy thing to strive for, but it is only one piece of the puzzle. We will never fully have equality nor fulfillment until we make some crucial changes in our home lives, our workplaces, our culture, and in our public policy so that all of women's work is valued equally, both in the workplace and on the home front. It didn't matter if I got my career set before starting a family. It didn't even matter if I got to the very top, which, as the CEO of a global enterprise and best-selling author, on paper, it looks like I did. Once I became the mother of two young boys, all that equality and advancement I'd fought for in the workplace did not make me exempt from also being, by societal default, the primary caregiver." Now we're getting started. "My husband, Nihal, is a good partner, but like every woman I know, I am the home life CEO. I'm the coordinator of parent-teacher conferences, birthday parties, dental checkups, sneaker replacements, flu shots, haircuts, and karate classes for my kids. I'm the designated homework helper, splinter remover, weird rash identifier, lost stuffed animal finder, and itchy tag remover. I'm the family event planner, transportation controller, in-house chef, social secretary, food and supplies monitor, travel agent, and both headhunter and human resources for babysitters, dog walkers, cleaners, and repair persons. I'm also the go-to when my aging parents need medical assistance or when my niece Maya needs the rental agreement for her apartment renewed. While my husband and I both run busy business enterprises by day, I also run another enterprise 24/7. The family enterprise. And like millions of working women like myself, I'm exhausted. But more than that, I'm angry. Because beneath all the glossy, shimmering feminist promise of having it all is a dark truth that no one told me and that I unwittingly emitted from my raw empowerment rhetoric. Having it all is really just a euphemism for doing it all." Yeah. Does your brain hurt?
Made me think of a lot of different people in a lot of different family situations. Brain hurting for sure. For sure.
Yeah, this book is really interesting. I pretty much read almost all of it last night. I got it from the library. It's been all the rage, right? She's the author of the Marshall Plan for Moms, but it's been very popular on social media. So I have lots of thoughts. I align with this book in some ways, and in other ways, I'm not sure. I'm questioning some of the solutions. I wonder if they're not going to create more of the same problems we have. But that being said, when I talk about, so what I defined here was really like domestic labor, mental load, emotional labor. It's the other full-time job that women have if they're working inside the home and outside of the home, right?
Yes, everything beyond your traditional work. Everything.
Yes.
Yep.
Everything. So trying to do two full-time jobs with a pay of one, and feeling, and then layer on a pandemic on top of that, and I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. The book goes on to detail the statistics about how women are completely burnt out and how it's unsustainable, and then she talks about solutions. So right. In our previous conversations, Rachel, we did have this worksheet where we divided like the emotional labor, mental load, and domestic labor, and in categories, deciding what you want to scrap, who's doing it, who should be doing it, all of that. That's one piece. And when we talk about dual career planning, obviously you can't forget this stuff, right? You need to factor it in. So before I dive into that piece of dual career plan and seasons of life, actually, before we were talking, I had just this enormous Excel spreadsheet with seasons of life divided into chunks of 5, right?
Cool. Okay.
And thinking like about my earning potential and what's important and the different currencies and the different risks. And it's especially because I have my own business, it's quite complex to figure it out, right? There are no easy formulas. I have to play with different scenarios and projections.
Right.
But I do this to look at the different seasons and ages and caregiving duties, and like, when are they going to be the golden years of my kids, and when are they going to be teenagers and won't want to talk to us? When do I go more into my career? When do I want to, like lean out because I have other priorities, or, am I going to factor in other sources of revenue? So that topic of dual career plan is really hot right now. Also, I'm getting a lot of requests. I'm doing a bunch of trainings, but so there's those two things. There's the mental load, and then also there's giving ourselves more spaciousness and looking like at the arc of life and the seasons of life for women, because I think that is a really useful tool. As women, we have different caregiving roles, we have different peaks and valleys in our careers and our earning potentials. And if we try to behave and follow men's career patterns, then, well, I think we suffer ultimately at the end of the day, because we don't have the same reality, right? And I don't think we should pretend we don't. So that's a pretty long intro, Rachel, when I'm talking about all of this stuff, like the really tactical day-to-day stuff,
right?
And then zooming out and kind of thinking in terms of seasons and 5-year chunks and seasons of life. Essentially, what comes to mind for you?
There's a lot to talk about here. First of all, day to day and your work day versus that, looking at your entire life and trying to envision what that might look like for you. And especially if you're in a traditional family where, if you're married or you're a common law, or you have a spouse or a partner, and one person, if you're in a heterosexual marriage where you have, traditionally, if the woman is meant to do more of those writing cards and taking care of family and being the sandwich generation and doing the grocery shopping, planning the sporting outings, etc., and any kind of relationship or partnership where you have children involved, I guess, things in a little bit of a way, I'd be curious to know how many families this is their reality for them, where the mom is in this really serious domestic role, or like working and also trying to manage all of those other things outside the household, and her husband or spouse is not doing any of those things. And sorry, I'm at one of the centers and the door kind of opens and closes. So if there's a little background noise, sorry about that. No, and I just think about, like my situation, for example. I'm in a fairly traditional relationship. We have a little guy. We're expecting another one. I have a busy career. He does too. We both work full time. We don't struggle as much with some of the things that I think, like she mentioned a lot of different things in Pay Up, that quote that you read, like all those different things you have to manage. And I can pick out 2 or 3 things where I know I don't necessarily plan it, but I still feel overwhelmed with everything that I have to think about. So for example, my son started, he does soccer 2 nights a week. He did swimming, and he also was in karate. And my husband was the one who actually set him up with the sports, makes a point to communicate with the sports teams and the activities. He's the one who manages all of those things. So it's actually not me who's worrying so much about that kind of planning. But when it comes to groceries, he and I he steps up half the time. I do too. And we both support each other in making meals, making sure we all eat at the end of the day, making sure that whatever work time we have to split, we're covering each other. So it feels more like the household is still being run by both of us, but it still doesn't feel any less exhausting. When she's exhausted and she's angry, I would really love to dig into that more, because I don't know where the concept of I don't have to do anything comes from when it comes to the spouse. That doesn't make any sense anymore. Kids, especially when you get into having 2 children, you need to have a spouse or a partner or somebody who is there to support you and handle that other teeter-totter balance. You have to be able to do that, or else neither person will be able to have a fulfilling career, or they go to work and they feel really tired and they come home and they're doing it all over again. And it can be too much. And I think a lot, especially in childcare, what's the quality of the relationship with your child? What is your child learning from the example of their parents? And just making sure that, they're getting a good example or having a good example set for them. And then I start to think about, well, what about moms and partners that are divorced? What about all the families that I know who are separated, divorced, don't have a spouse, raising kids solo? I know a lot of different friends of mine and professionals who I've seen who are split or not with their partner, their children's other parent. And then I wonder, well, how are they managing and how are they having a dual career? So there's so many different things that I think about when it comes to this topic. It's very huge. And all I know is that, that what she said, what you hit it on, it didn't matter if she had her career set before her family. And I'd really like to think about that, because I wonder how many, women thought about, well, I should maybe set up my career before I have children. And then it didn't matter. Okay, well, what does that mean? And what does it look like? And what would it mean if somebody decided to start their career after they had a family? I mean, maybe that's happened more in generations previous. Maybe it happens now. I see it a lot. So kind of two different things going on. And yes, it's too much. It could be too much for mothers and having to deal with all of these things.
Well, we could approach the conversation from so many angles. And again, there are so many variables, right? So many variables depending on, how your couple is structured, whether you are a couple or not, whether, you're a blended family, whether you're a single parent family, for whatever reason, whether there were other disruptors too in your trajectory, like illnesses that can come in, right? We're all going to experience somebody close in our life having a serious illness, or ourselves. So they're not simple things, but having observed and researched and worked in the domain for the last 5 years, I've noticed one thing is that most of us are always rushing. We're rushing all the time. It feels like we never have enough time. And I've experimented with so many different models in terms of support systems, thinking I found the solution and the panacea. And it's never fully solved and never fully simple. So to give you a bit of an overview, like one tip I would like to give people who are listening to this episode to really walk away with is, and something that's been following me and I've shared in our Lead Like a Mother Summit in our Mom D community, is what if you give yourself 3 years to accomplish what you set out in one? That's number one. Okay, that's the number one question, is journal today. Like we're going to cover a lot of ground. I think our conversation will be organic. It's a philosophical debate. It's a tactical debate. It's a strategic debate. But one thing that has really helped me recently is I've made the commitment to unrush. I've been building a business. I've been trying to grow it, to scale it. I've led business leaders, mentors, influencers impact my thinking. And so I tried their strategies, and some were American strategies, and some worked, and some aspects did not work at all with my Canadian lifestyle and with my family goals, right? So, but I just realized a lot of it was felt really rushed. And I think when you start a business, you need that momentum. You are rushing, like you're literally racing against time because you have limited money and resources. So, it had to be done. But now that I've experimented for 5 years, I've learned some lessons. And so the question I asked myself and that I asked my clients and summit participants was, what if you unrushed? What if you gave yourself more time to accomplish what you set out to do in such a short period of time? So there's the 3-year time frame that I'd like to explore, because I like signals from the universe or from God, however you like to hear it, right? People have different spiritual connections. I believe in God, and so that's the word I use, but for others it's source, spirituality, universe, right? If you like that. So that quote was coming to me all the time. I was like, maybe I should start paying attention. And so I started thinking, okay, what if I give myself 3 years? And immediately it was like, just like a breath of why am I trying to cram into, why do I want my kids to do X and Y and Z all in 1 year? What if we spread it over 3 years? That was a big relief. And then there's also the idea of the 25 years. I've been playing with that model and scenario for a long time in our community and the different pillars of our life. So my latest iteration, I'm excited to share that with our community in the next year, was really looking at the seasons. I think when I've been doing workshops in the last few months in different places, when I talked about the seasons of life, a lot of women really love that. They say, oh, that's really helpful. Like I have seasons of productivity and seasons of rest, right? And often when we think about career growth, we think really linear, like I have to get the next promotion, I have to get the next raise, I have to blah, 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 blah. But when we're birthing, when we're gestating, when we're breastfeeding, even when we have kids who are, have been walking outside of the womb for a couple of years, it's very energetically demanding. And if we never factor in those periods of rest or of collapse, right? Of like, sometimes you grow and sometimes you fall and you have to learn new lessons, you're setting yourself up for like a really steep and exhausting climb. So that's why I made this 25-year scenario and vision and putting in some of the key variables. My children's ages, when are they going to school? When can I expect to pay less in childcare? When are my parents going to age? When are the golden years, right? It's a big spreadsheet that it takes into account our financial planning, tax planning, but also our values and vision. And it's been so liberating to look at that arc and to realize, okay, there's going to be seasons. Maybe the next 5 years, this is when I can expect financially. And maybe it's not as aggressive as I thought, but then there's going to be all these different seasons, likely, if there are no disruptors, which may come, or we have mitigation plans for the disruptors. Like, okay, well, our kids are going to be these ages and, it's going to be a different life. And then they're going to be older and it's going to be a different season. And then my parents might require care. So that's going to be a different season. So where are, the different flows? And when I talk about dual career planning, I also put me and my partner's ages. So here in this scenario, I'm assuming that, you are with a partner, with a spouse. And in my case, I am too. But I put our different ages and, our different earning potentials and like our energetic levels too, right? Exhausted, sleep deprived, new baby stages, right? Those are, you're gonna be stretched that different way. So, if you are single, like I didn't play with a scenario like that, but I think you could do similar things, right? Like your age, and also you are probably going to rely on a village, whether it's friends or brothers or sisters, right? Community, you can also factor them in and how there's going to be an interplay with your village. And think of seasons of life when you do dual career planning. So that has been really helpful to look at it in those slices versus just like, I need to do this year, and I need to achieve this goal. And if I don't, then I'm a failure type of thing, right? To put in black and white. So yeah. Have you thought of your life in terms of these seasons and arcs, Rachel?
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah. But it's very difficult. I feel like to embrace that, because the person that you are before you have children is somebody who has more flexibility, more time. And usually you're thinking only about your goals. Yeah. So my big question marks, or my questions have always been, well, how do I move from being this person who is so goal oriented and wants XYZ to happen in a certain amount of time to, after you have children and you are energetically drained, how do you then change your mindset? Because you do have to change your mindset, and you have to adjust your expectations of yourself. Yeah. And I think too, my question would be, when you define all those seasons, which season is it? When is it ever going to be the right season to tackle it? And when the season does come where you have this planned and it happens to not turn out to be the season where you should be doing it, or something unexpected happens and you need to face change. So how do you know when it's the right season to go after something? Because I feel like, not that things have been on hold, but when you have a child, you have so many more things to consider and think about. And, for example, for myself, without naming different commitments outside of work, I do have other ones, for example, that I have signed myself up for that I'm really struggling to meet those commitments. And when I am and I think about these commitments and thinking about your advice of unrushing, don't rush. So trying not to rush, first of all, through life, through all the things that you need to do. And then also saying no to things that you would have said yes to before, and how incredibly challenging it is just to do that. Because from the outside in, I think your circle, your professional connections and network, people do see you as somebody who you're professional and you're a leader and you can take on these new challenges and these new roles. But how do you say no in a way that doesn't feel really like bad at your core? Because it feels really bad it's like, am I the person who I thought I was? It's a really existential, it makes you really question who you are, what your values are, what you're meant to do in life. And it's very sad. It can be very hard to turn down things that you normally would have said yes to for other things, like to be able to focus. That's where, yeah.
100%. It is your identity changes many times, and it's like feelings of grief in some regard, right? But you pointed out something really interesting. You said feel. Okay, you asked the word feel, and you talked about goals. And again, one concept we've been exploring a lot this year in the community is the concept of core desired feelings. So there's many ways of setting goals. There's the goals that you described, I think are, well, I will say, some people might not relate to this language, but I will use it because it has been helpful for us. When I talk about masculine and feminine energies, I'm not just talking about female and male. We've been using them to describe flow and logic, like linear versus circular, right? All of that, those qualities, the yin and the yang. But those goals, they're often really mathematical, like, logical, linear. I've met the goal or I haven't. So we've been using a different framework this year to define success. And that is, how do you want to feel? Not just what do you want to achieve, but actually, how do you want to feel? It's been a struggle for me and for others too, because it's so different. Like, you define success more about how do you want to feel, and then you decide what you want to do and the action you want to take based on how you want to feel. It's really different. I mean, the point is not to become completely narcissistic and think, well, if this doesn't bring me joy, I'm not going to do it at all. We have all responsibilities that we have to meet, but it has been interesting for people to ask the question, if I value peace and harmony above everything, will I take on these extra commitments? Right?
What a question. That to me really, really turns this whole conversation on its head.
It does.
Because women who have these, like you said, linear, very easy to define goals, and then how does it make you feel? And if I say no to these things, I don't know, it just takes me right back to so many different things that I've thought about, that I thought I wanted, or things that I signed myself up for, or goals that I had previously, career ambitions and different things. And
well, yeah, because goal setting has been so trendy, right? It's really all these planners, set yourself goals, manifest, la la la. It's been super trendy for anybody who's interested in personal growth, personal development, goal setting. But if you take a step back and you think of moments you achieved a certain goal or milestones, or okay, it's great, but then the next reaction is like, what's next? What's next? Right? You've got that adrenaline rush for one moment. So yes, you've invested that money or got that promotion, but maybe now you're working harder or you're more tired. It's, you realize that yes, you can achieve a lot of things. And do you feel better now that you have?
That's really changed. That just changed the way I thought about a lot of things. It did, but it's because you think you want something. But how will that something make you feel? And it is easy to figure that out, because I think so many people have higher, it's not a higher, I hate to say that, because how does an individual person scale or stack their levels of achievement? If I get my PhD, I'm going to feel so much better. Or if I get my PhD while I also have children, will that make me feel exhausted, even though it's something I really want? Will I be really happy that I went to full-time school, worked part-time, and also raised my kids? Can I achieve that balance? In some cases, people can, and it's totally okay. But if you're not feeling like it's something that I'm having the same struggle, because there's things that I'd like to do, but doing them makes me feel anxious or exhausted or tired, or like I don't have enough time for my family, and I feel like I'm doing too much. But then I feel like, oh, I really feel disappointed that I can't be a part of these things. It's hard to decide. You really need to come back to that. And at the end of that 25 years, I like also looking at it from that perspective. But you're right, goal setting is trendy. And when the goals are only based on things that you can, this job or this amount of money or this degree or whatever it happens to be, it's really hard how do you factor in everything else that's going on in your life? and your relationships and your emotional health and those kinds of things too, because you have to deconstruct it and kind of take it from your own perspective rather than, you can't just, it's not a sandwich you can just build and then, okay, this is perfect. I'm going to take a bite out of it. Well, maybe it doesn't work like that. And maybe it's okay to not take something on, even if you think you can.
Rachel, I do want to leave you with that question today. It is something that can completely change your mindset, because you and I have talked about values and vision, and all those are, I will say, more masculine. Okay, again, please bear with me as I use these terms. There's more complexity in terms of how we use them, but they are typically more masculine ways of defining success, through logic, through goals, through measurable things. Whereas motherhood is anything but linear and logical. It is chaotic. It is, it's surrender. It's just the process of creating life, of bringing life into this world. However the baby comes out of you, it's just like a world that is different. It's a different energy, right? And so if we use only success defined through masculine terms, for our motherly existence, and all the nuances too in between masculine, feminine, and kind of, right, the non-binary and the energies that are there to complement each other. They're both important, and there's different ways of defining success. And so if you start, right,
there you go,
seasons or feelings too, that one is, it's truly when you start asking yourself the question, if I value, peace and joy and peace, peace of mind above everything, how do I organize my life around that? Are you going to enroll your kids in 5 activities in a year's time? Do you need to accomplish XYZ career goal in this time frame? Do you need to, what do you need to do? It's a really, really different way of approaching things. And next year, when I'm looking at my planner, and kind of when we're thinking about our dual career planning and like the 25-year arc and the seasons and what we want to do, I've really decided to unrush. I said, I'm going to work this amount of hours, and this is, how much it could cost me. This is how much deficit I could incur. I'm going to build my business around my family, because with all the events in my life, with the losses and me building a business and losing my dad, my family started being squeezed around my business. And I decided, no, this is over. It's done.
Yeah.
So it's a choice. And we had a workshop with a wonderful facilitator this week, and she says, manifest peace and balance in parenthood. Mm-hmm. And so she asked us to write down, what does peaceful parenting look like? And if we choose peace in parenting, what does that look like?
Who was that? Who was the person who ran that for you? Tell us a little bit more about that, because that's wonderful.
Yes, her name was Shakira, and she's in the States, and she's a single mother, actually, of a child with cerebral palsy. Right?
Wow.
So she runs her business. And so she was asking those questions. I mean, I don't remember all the details, but she was asking, if the foundation of what you're seeking to build through your parenting is peace, what is your day going to look like? How are you going to start your day? What are your routines going to look like? What are you going to favor? So for me, it's very, if you're going to put peace of mind first, to me, that is incompatible with my kids having 5 activities every single day of the week.
Don't you find there's this, for kids and for moms especially on social media and social networks and connections, there's this expectation that I can have it all. Like there's this conversation right now, and it's been going on for years or for a while now since I've seen it. You can have this and you can have this too. You can have your own business and you can have a peaceful family life too. And what I'm seeing is so many different mothers feeling like you said, rush, exhausted, angry, trying to do all these things. What is it that they need to cut out of their lives in order to be a peaceful parent and enjoy a more peaceful stage of their life right now? Doesn't mean they don't go after their career. Like how this discussion and this whole conversation around I can do it all. You can have it all. You can if you just try. You can if you just organize it.
Well, that's what the author of the book that I just quoted denounces, right? She does a very scathing critique. And I mean, she proposes solutions that I don't know if they're all implementable, to be honest. When I read them, I'm wondering, are they going to, first she says, I used to be the cheerleader that says, lean in, have it all. And then she says, I failed miserably. And I led a bunch of women down that ideology. So I commend a lot of the content in this book, but the solution suggested, I wonder if they're just going to put us in another blind alley, expecting we're going to change culture, we're going to change the system, we're going to change everything in the policies, and everything is going to be la-di-da. Somebody has to do that work in the trenches.
Right. Yes.
And when we have little kids, I'll be honest, is it fun to be in the trenches? No, like I want to enjoy being a mother.
Yes.
So it's a very difficult topic. It's a very, very difficult topic. Yes, like that whole idea, you and I grew up on the diet of you can have it all. You can have it all. You can be anything you want to be. But
if you just work hard and you just put your head down and...
But what if cancer happens? What if a pandemic happens? What if death happens? What if whatever? We see that it's not that simple. And
yes, yeah.
I think the solution is truly looking inside our hearts and our souls and defining, like seeking, being true curious seekers and using the sensory experience to really define success for ourselves, but from the heart. And with having, for me, it comes with deep faith. Like when I looked at my arc and I thought about my business and I thought, maybe I'm going to grow my family again. And I won't be able to put in the same amount of energy I put in my business for this season. And maybe my family's going to have deficits for a couple of years. And I wrote it down. And at first it felt like such a scary idea that, okay, we're going to have less money. And, so what? Right. So I sat down and I looked at the plans and I looked at it with a financial planner today, somebody from my business. And I thought, okay, well, maybe for these few years, we're going to have a deficit. But then once my kids are out of childcare and they're in school, and if I go back to like a fuller time salary, can invest more in my business, then it will take me a year to make up for it. Big deal. And then we have all these other seasons of life, right? So if we think as success as black and white, I must have my career and my children at the same time. I must have my PhD and my children. This is what success looks like. And we look at it in really narrow categories, then we're setting ourselves up for physical and mental and emotional failure. I think we are. Mm-hmm. So it took me years of kind of wrestling with so many concepts of where does my idea of success come from? And I've discovered that a lot of women of my heritage, like a few women mentioned Polish, Eastern European and Asian, we have a tendency to like ruthlessly, what was the term she used? Not self-torture. It wasn't that, but it's just, we can, it has a tendency
that
to
hard,
right? Like
work.
This really, really hard work. And like, there was this really good term, and so I started questioning why am I so addicted to work and performance? And so I started digging, well, I was rewarded for having good grades and, and getting awards but why? Does that make me happy? Does that bring me joy at the end of the day? Sure, to some extent, but it's also making me really tired.
It's like I backing away from that, which is really hard because it's part of how you were raised. Oh, I want to see you successful. I want to see you in that job. I want to see you in this leadership role. I want to see you with this degree. And you're thinking, yeah. Oh, I'd love to see you with a family. I'd love to see you have more kids. And it's like, okay, what? Which one?
All of that.
And or how,
or how. Exactly. So there are no simple answers to that. The book, again, there's lots, everything. It's almost like you're quoting the book without having read. She said like,
can you hold up
the
title
pay
again?
up. I have to put on my chest because there's a blurry background, I think.
Pay up. Okay. I want to go.
Yeah, it's very, it's very trendy right now. She also talks about I wish I had this other excerpt. She says, we can't tell women to be perfect professionals and perfect mothers, but punish them in each category because they're not compatible with each other. Right. So I think my solution, the Kinia solution, is like really looking inside, and it's taken me truly years to redefine my version of success in the different categories of my life, and then experiment with how they fit into each other, truly through a sensory experience, not just through my mind, but like, how does it feel in my body to try to do these things? And right now I'm severely anemic and I'm exhausted and I can't get help from our medical support system for whatever reason, like there are shortages, things like that, right? Yep. So as women, when we have children, we experience these things that nobody tells us about. You might be low on iron and you're going to be exhausted, not just because you're nursing, but for whatever reason. So, defining what I want and then experimenting, like, do I really want this? Or is this something that society wanted from me or from my parents? Or maybe they both wanted from me and I want it too. And that's okay because now it all aligns. So
yes. Yeah. And it makes you feel excited and you're
yes.
going to go after it, and you can balance it with everything. And that goal is so clear in your mind, and that's what you want. And that is also amazing. And
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I see this. The other night, I walked down the hallway. I have Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, like you said, Lean In, Lean, sitting right there on my shelf. And I remember reading it, but I read it as a woman with yet no child. That was like over 7 years ago. And a lot of things made a lot of sense. And I mean, even now, I like in the industry that I work in, working for a childcare provider, I don't see just moms using our services or just moms picking up and drop. No. That's not the reality of it now. Definitely not. It's very balanced. I see many, many dads, many split families, single parents. It's a whole different kind of, I guess, group of families. Of course, families who look more traditional too, lots and lots of them. But women who are very career ambitious, of course, women in STEM working in jobs and roles and positions, but there's always room for that leaning out. There's always room, regardless of being able to take a step back, because parents need things like childcare, or they need like different seasons of their life, and they need different things. And it's great to be able to see all these other examples of what it means to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's changed the way that I see success as well, because when I see, those that I either colleagues or, I mean, all of our clients, when I talk to them about who they are, why they're, where they're going to work, they're coming back from maternity leave, maybe they left and they're coming back again. Everybody goes through all of these stages and, uses support systems and different sanity preserving strategies in different ways. But there's just, there's one thing we need to do more of, and it's listen to how we feel about certain things. And so many of us don't do that. Or we're learning how to, because it can be tough to say no to things that you think, like you said, why am I addicted to this, goal setting and success? Why am I really digging after this? Or is it okay if I just let this go for, 1 or 2 or 3 years and give myself some time to get back into something different later? Maybe something will come up that was supposed to, if this isn't feeling right. But you really have to trust that, when the door opens, there's so many different sayings about grabbing opportunity when it comes, and taking different jobs, or and when you don't do that a lot, I think there's so much you can question, which is, I think, why, people and women, maybe the unrushing is the first tip, but maybe the second tip or goal women should think about is saying no more often, even to things they think they want to say yes to. But if they're getting that gut feeling that they are going to be too overwhelmed, maybe just saying no to things they maybe would have said yes to previously. But it's hard to do. It's hard to do for people that really see something clearly and want to build it and feel like if they just tried hard enough and worked hard enough that it would happen.
I'm a little bit tired of that, to be honest. I hear that a lot in the, in the business world. Like, you can have anything you want if you just work hard enough.
What does that even mean? Yeah.
It always brings to mind, like, there are people who really want a child and they've tried everything, or, or they get really sick, or a parent gets sick, or it's always if you work hard and at what cost. And it's assuming everything's in our control. It really isn't. The older we get, the more we realize that there are some things that are not in our control.
Right.
And so, to say that to our children has consequences. It really makes me think about what I want to tell my children, and what do we really value, and what does it mean to be a good human, right? Is success just a career title and then becoming a parent and making enough money and buying a house? Is that how we define success for our children and for ourselves?
And this is, it's something too, when you think about change and before my career at Kepler, I worked in change management, and before I came to Edmonton even. And I think about, and that was in Calgary. I worked in a lot of busy settings, busy business settings. And then coming into Kepler has really been no different. It's been a busy environment with a lot of different changes, and parents have to deal with change. We all have to deal with change. COVID comes up, etc. And one thing I've really always loved and been passionate about is change management and that cycle of change, and also human behavior, and how people are able to embrace change and go after different things. And especially when it comes to our careers, it's almost something that you think, no, this is non-negotiable. My career has to come first. Or, I mean, everybody has to have a job to earn money, but I've seen a lot of different parents in different situations where maybe the dad has decided to stay home for 4 years to support his wife while she's working on her PhD, because she's going to do her practicum and she's actually working in the hospital. She's going to become a doctor and she's almost there. And it was very peaceful because they chose this nice balance that worked well for them. And now dad is a mortgage broker and loving his career. And there's so many cool things that I've seen people do. And what I admire about those people and the qualities that I love about them are their ability to smile and accept change, even if it's not necessarily what they saw for themselves. They're still going to be successful. They will. But it's that mindset and trying to work, be positive, even in the face of change, even if you're unhappy with what's going on, even if you're you need to change your goals, or you need to go after it's going after the cheese in the maze. Maybe I need to change that cheese. Maybe I need to back away a little bit less from building my business for a couple of years. And then this year will be the year, but how do you embrace what's currently going, also something that you didn't plan? It's hard, but I admire people that can do that. I like to see how they deal with that and how they kind of switch their direction and stay positive.
Pivot. Yeah. The word, I don't know if it was a word of the year. I know that we, as we wrap up our conversation, I know that we zigzagged a lot when it comes to dual career planning and also sanity preserving strategies and emotional labor.
Yeah.
I would like to leave people again with some concrete tips. I mean, how I've been chewing on those questions from a values perspective, a models perspective, redefining success. So very concretely, one of the first resources I came through was Harvard Business Review does have a few articles on dual career planning, right? And asking questions and literally defining models. It can be the parallelograms, it can be the power couples, it can be kind of rallying, right? So just even reading that article and having a discussion with your partner, if that's the case for you, can be a starting point. Then answering questions like what kind of professional I want to be and what kind of parent I want to be. And questions like, I put my family first when, and I put my career first when, and just defining those parameters to not feel guilty all the time, right? If you're going to have a career, sometimes it's going to be demanding and you're going to be less present at home, but define those non-negotiables when you're going to be there no matter what, right? And that can help you have seasons of presence, back away, you just have to come to terms with that, right? And what support systems and sacrifices will come along the way. So those are some really tactical questions to get the conversation going and identify with your partner, depending on the type of career arcs you may have, right? And in medicine, you may have those seasons of practicums, but maybe in certain practices, there's a time where you have more control over your schedule. I've seen some doctors who choose to work 4 days a week and a certain set hours, and that's it, right?
Right.
So depending on the careers you have, you may have seasons that are really, investment heavy. Well, if you can plan that with your partner and choose not to do both at the same time, it could be helpful. Or if you're going to go head first into your careers, how are you going to focus on your family, and when are you going to focus on your family? So that's those tactical pieces. And then strategically, I always like to ask the question, in 25 years, when your kids look back on the time they had with you as a working parent, what are they going to say? What kind of impact will you have made? Why did you work, right? If you have answers if you have answers to those questions, it's easier to explain to your child, well, mommy's working right now because she's helping, other mommies be healthy, right? And then that can be inspiring for your child too, and explain the sacrifice. But mommy's going to come back and she's going to help you be healthy in 5 hours or however. So that's really good to have in your back pocket.
Yes.
So I hope that people, with those tactical questions of reflecting with their partners, thinking about the different seasons of life, and also defining success, not just in material terms, but in spiritual terms and values-driven terms, right? And feelings terms. What does success feel like in your body? When you've made that $100,000, when you've gotten that promotion to CEO or VP, how does it feel in your body? What is it getting you? That's a question we're not used to answering. And yet it matters, because if we're chasing goals to the point of burnout, then truly what's the point?
And that feel is, I circled that word. I wrote it down and circled that word because it really did. It does. You really have to go back to, well, how is this making me feel? And then you'll know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Kinia and Rachel Jam and this community. We hope that this philosophical, strategic, and tactical discussion gave you some food for thought on what success looks like for you as a parent juggling career and family. In this case, we focused more on, on the setting of having two partners, but we do know that that's not always the case for everyone. So we hope that there was enough for everyone to chew on. Rachel, thank you so much for your time. Are there any last thoughts you would like to share before we wrap up today's conversation?
No, I love it. And I think that when it comes to dual career planning, the better you have and the more conversations you have, I think, with your partner, the more successful you'll be. Because I think a lot of times, as parents, we tend to, sometimes we don't sit down and actually have these discussions and tell our partner how we're feeling and where we're at and what we'd like to see. And it's something that is very valuable when you sit down and do it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I will see you backstage. And if you're interested in finding out more about Kepler or Pros and Babes, then please find us on social media, on the internet, and we are here to support you as working parents.
That's right.